Ella is 7 years old. She's a bubbly, happy child, full of personality, very cheeky, and has an amazing creativity and sense of humour.
Maddie is 10. Maddie's a beautiful kid. She's pure. Asperger kids can't lie. If you're at a party and somebody's hurt, just go straight to Maddie and Maddie will tell you exactly what's happened.
Ella has Asperger's. The impact can be quite severe. She has a lot of sensory overload issues, which can lead to meltdowns.
Her biggest struggles, I guess, would be her anxiety. It's really high, which then causes obsessions. The support I received prior NDIS was HAQA funding. You get $7,000 a year, and $2,100 of that you can use for resources. Once we started school and our HAQA funding was finished, you're self-funding, you're paying yourself. So I would say the biggest impact is you're probably not doing as much as you should be, or able to do as many sessions as you could be doing because of the money.
The transition from HAQA to NDIS was very simple. Once you're in the system, the NDIS is a lot more streamlined than HAQA to maintain and to use as an ongoing system.
So what happens when you first have an engagement with NDIS is you get sent a letter and some forms to fill out, which I did, and then was allocated a planner. She asked me a little bit about Maddie, how old she was, what she'd need.
What we really love about the meeting process with the planner is just being able to get that chance to sit down with someone who's impartial to your child and isn't really bogged down in the day-to-day therapies and what you're doing, and is able to give a little bit of an outsider's view on how they see things.
Some of the perceived barriers out there for parents are, I suppose, finding it stressful. I've heard some parents say feeling like they're going through a whole diagnosis again, not knowing what they can go in there and ask for. I remember that being quite stressful. Obviously, you know, you want speech pathology, you want occupational therapy, you want psychology, but you had no idea that there was recreational funding and respite services.
The number one thing going in to see the NDIS would be to go in with some sort of an idea of what you want, a goal, what you want to achieve, what support you want for your child, and be able to articulate it, I suppose.
If possible, I would say to talk to other people who are already a part of the NDIS, get some information about how they found their first planning session.
Ask other parents out there what's on their plans before going into the meeting. And I suppose at the end of the day, though, it is all about your child, what your child needs. You know them better than anybody. You know what they need. So have that list in your head, where you want to go and what's the outcome for your child at that end of the year. Where do you want to be with your child? And that'll give you the answers for the other things, I think.
The NDIS is a more personal plan. It caters more to the individual child rather than the children as a whole, and especially for autism spectrum disorder, it is a spectrum and every child is very different, so it's nice to have that real individualness about it.
For me, the advice is to definitely persist and get through that first planning session, research, get to know the system, because what the outcome is for your kids, you can do so many more therapies. It helps monetary, it takes that pressure off the family. So I definitely say persist through it, and it's well worth it.
The early childhood intervention approach is the National Disability Insurance Scheme's design for very young children, aged 0 to 6 and their families. The key design features are to make the scheme easy to access and to ensure that families can be engaged in a way that answer questions for them quickly and give them access to expert advice and guidance, making sure supports are available as early as possible in the child's life, where there might be something going on. That could be a clearly diagnosed disability, but that also might be the presentation of a developmental delay that requires further investigation and support.
We know as service providers how important early intervention is, and this approach really allows us to meet with families straight away.
We were getting to the point where we were feeling quite lost. We really weren't sure where else to go with Nate. Some of the behaviours were quite extreme and constant, and we finally got to a point where now we feel that support. When you've been lost and had no help for 6 months, to get someone to give you that help quickly, you know, it's immeasurable.
Early intervention is very important so that we can get in and we can teach children skills that they need in their deficit areas, and we can also manage the environment to make it easier for the children to participate and engage.
A diagnosis, while important, is only an informing feature. What is really, really important is the family feels that the child is well supported and that the ongoing journey for that family is something that they have positive regard to.
As an access partner, we meet with that family, identify some goals and things the family want to work on and how to support that child. Now, our role is also to look at future options for that family. So if that family needs support through mainstream community services, we'd help them find those services and access those services.
Some children obviously are born with quite clearly diagnosable disabilities, whereas others' developmental delay is not so clear, it's a presentation. Under the early intervention parts of the scheme, diagnosis is not necessary.
Even though we know the main areas of which Ollie needs to access therapy, we don't actually have a global diagnosis, and we may be some years from that. But that's not a problem in terms of accessing the things that he needs to help him, because we've got enough of a diagnosis of a broad sense.
The design is less about having to fill in forms and go through applications to meet criteria, and more about making contact with as many children and their parents as possible that do need that type of support.
If this program didn't exist, I'm not sure where my son's future would be. Doing all that hard work now, later on in life, it'll be easier for him.